Greetings and welcome to the Grandmaster Chess Academy. I have another exciting and attacking game of chess to share. This was the sixth and final game that I played with someone. I jumped online and played some bullet chess, 2 minute plus 1 second, good old lichess. And I won 3 games. And then somebody stepped up and beat me down with a peculiar game for the first game. I had the black pieces. The second game, I had outplayed them, but they were able to make me think so much that I lost on time. The third game, I outplayed and had a 1-in game. King, rook, and pawn in game. But I didn't have enough time. Again, I was down to 3 seconds. After I secured the draw, it took me about 4 seconds to understand what the win was, so I would have lost on time again. Glad to take the draw. But then entered into the next game, which I annihilated my opponent. And then the next game, I annihilated again. So we were tied at 2 wins each with a draw. And this was going to be the final game, as I had to do some quick Qi Kung Tai Chi and get ready to go to work. The Silver Spring, Maryland Jazz Festival, putting together the audio for that show. So this was that game that we played, and I would definitely like to say that it's an exciting attacking chess game inspired by the King Crusher series of his Leela Chess. I've been watching that, and it's definitely been giving me more ideas about how to open up positions and create opportunities. Anyway, here we go. That's enough of preamble. Let's get busy. And we start with the e4. And we have a Sicilian defense. Knight f3, knight c6, knight c3. This is the Sicilian defense, old Sicilian. And we'll go from here. Now, in this position, e6, standard and popular. In such games, we find Vasily Ivanchuk beating Magnus Carlsen in 2013. I'm sorry, that's Magnus Carlsen playing the white pieces and Vasily Ivanchuk playing the black pieces. Hikaru Nakamura beat Anish Giri from this position in 2016. And Garry Kasparov and Peter Svidler drew in 2001. And also in 2001, Alexander Morozevich and Viswanathan Anand also drew this position. But of course, let's move on, because this is a standard position, seen thousands and thousands and thousands of times. Bishop to b5, queen b6. This is becoming more and more common as an answer for not having to worry about the knight being snapped off and the pawns being squirreled, without having to lift the knight into that position and block the bishop. So I castle. I figure I want to be quicker to full development, and black obviously is going to take a minute to get there with this bishop hemmed in, these 2 pieces hemmed in on the king side. No real development is taking place. White getting the first move just to make the quick castle, and so does. Here, knight on g to e7. Not computer appreciated, but it only took the evaluation from point 2 to point 3, so it's not a horrible move. Here I opened up a simple possibility and said, okay, if a6 comes, I have a retreat square here, and I can still aim for the kingside position. But, of course, it also blunts the knight from getting on the b4. And I can always just drop back to d3 or e2. D3 in the rarest of occasions, but E2, of course, being quite normal. Now, my opponent in this position played D6, opening up the pin. Now, up until that move, we were still in Grandmaster territory. Although a Grandmaster Leonid Kritz with the black pieces had lost from this position to Tobias Berwinkle, who was only 2291, perhaps a national master, FIDE master, I'm not quite sure. But maybe even an IM, I'm not sure. Anyway, this is a game from 2006 that they had played. And it continued with knight to d4, and white went on to win that game. Here, like I said, my opponent played d6. However, Stockfish felt that this was a better idea. And again, it's opening up this bishop line, getting the knight clear, and allowing the king to consider being prepared for a castling option with a d5 break at some point. Being allowed to be made available. So the computer line suggested these kind of ideas. And that's a pretty equal disposition at this point. I believe it's about 0.3. However, my opponent said d6. So, in response to my a3, my opponent said d6. Here, I say, hey, the position is great for me in that I'm castled, my king is safe. It's time to create problems, as each move that black makes from here will only go towards freeing up the position, getting the pieces active and on good squares, or at least attempting to find good squares for these pieces. So I start trouble in the center immediately before ideas of castling can be completed. Here my opponent does the natural move and captures towards the center, asking a question. The bishop is pinning his knight, so the knight can easily take back that pawn. And does. However, Mr. Stockfish 9+ PNACL thought that this was the correct move. Challenged the bishop immediately. And there's no trying to stay with the pawn on the pin position, because once I take, knight takes back, or even the queen, probably the knight takes back, freeing up the bishop, and then the pawn's just hanging. I can give it up and take, but then the knight can take back, be on a great position again. Everything is open, and everything is beautiful. So this is a great move, and the only real response is get out of the way. The computer suggested lines, depth of 33, went this way. Stop the pin. Ask a hard question. Get out of the way of the hard question. Continue to create pressure against an uncastled king position. Simple as that. That's what the computer's going for, and it's good. It definitely follows along the line of what I was seeking when I first played the d4 move. Alright, so I played the d4 move, and my opponent took, and I took back. Queen can't take, protected by my queen. Simple enough. And here, my opponent plays bishop to d7. Stops the pin. Very natural move. However, it gives white an advantage of a free tempi, and a very good one at that. Here again, a6 was suggested. And then again, the bishop to a4. And here, the bishop to d7 for the pin. But my opponent decided to go with the bishop to d7 to unpin the piece. And so I get the free tempi move. Now, the knight can't activate as it would destroy castling opportunities. So, at this point, tired of facing issues, my opponent makes another natural move. But as we know, in tricky and dynamic scenarios, natural moves can be deadly. Here, my opponent decides to listen to the computer, but a little too late. a6. This is obviously a questionable move. This is online. And it's protected. So, there are options on how to proceed. Now, Stockfish 9 plus PNACL and I chose the correct way, or the same way. I don't know if I call it the correct way. However, I was looking at this position, and it cost me about 30 seconds to go through these two different options. I probably spent about 22 seconds on option. What ended up being option B, but was really option A. And that was what Stockfish considered to be not as good, yet just as ultimately powerful in the long run. Knight to f5. All right, so the question is asked of the queen. You got to get out of the way. And here we have a line. The queen steps out of the way. And we get this pawn in this check. At this point, according to the computer, white's completely and totally lost. Actually, with the move a6, white was completely and totally lost. But now it's just beyond hope. How much is it beyond hope? That is the computer suggested move. And I know you're thinking to yourself, now wait a minute. How can this be reasonable? Looks bad. All day long. So, we dial it back. We ask ourselves, the king's in check. Where's the queen going to go? She's not under any threat at the moment. But the king only has one option. Either take my queen or the king steps over. And if king d8, well, there are such ideas as knight to f7 check. You have a hanging rook in this position. To come back to it, we get to attack first. To take another piece. Queen with the pin. Of course, that'll probably be a trade, but it's very much lost. So much so that the best move becomes queen takes knight. Alright, so that's how that could have gone. But I decided that after I put that bishop e3 out and received the response that said, okay, go ahead and challenge my queen, I went for knight to e6. Now, of course, this is controlling the dark squares. So the queen has very, very limited options at this point. Now I know that this is powerful. And the queen never wants to give up these dark squares, as it will end in that check, which will hang that rook. Scary looking stuff, right? Knight's en prise, bishop's en prise. But the queen's facing hassles, and the queen's a little more important. So here, my opponent went queen to a5, which is reasonable. Who wants to give their queen away? No one. But gosh darn if the computer didn't decide that this was the best move. And offered this follow-up. But of course, the average player is not going to do that. They're going to see their queen in trouble and find the salvation square and flee to it. There is no salvation. There is only giving away pieces. At this point, Stockfish says that the evaluation is plus 11.3 for white. But my opponent had too much material on the board. I had too many pieces en prise, and so play would continue. I mean, the queen's on this bishop, the bishop's over here. You got this right here to snatch this, here for snatching, here for snatching. You can even shore up your middle a little bit stronger. Why resign? Well, if you don't understand the position, you keep on playing. All right, down one piece. Queen is now safe. Or is she? Now here is the granddaddy of all moves, which I did not see, but it sure is pretty. Can you find it? This is worth the whole video. Now someone could say, this is the problem with bullet chess. But people in 2-hour games miss moves easier than this one. So I missed it. But I'll share it with you because it sure is pretty. But first we'll go through. I'll just share it with you because it sure is pretty. Now there's lots of ways to see this. But first, if the queen takes the bishop, that's no good. If the queen takes the knight, what do we have? We have check. Have to take. We have check. Looks grim. Here. That's a mate by knight. Here. That's mate by queen. So we can see that the ideas of queenly taking of the knight aren't going to cut it. Take here, and it's just check, and then takes for free because of the pin. Take the knight, just take the queen. Queen no longer has a square to go to stay alive except here. There's got to be doom, right? Why? Because it's the same idea of taking the knight. Doesn't change anything. Computer suggests this is the best move. Slowing down some of the heat and the pain. Not much, but it does slow things down a little. And then we have, which is forced. But what if I want to do this instead and save my rook? Well, then you get this. And that's mate. The knight's controlling the light squares. So, that's how we ended up at king to a7. But I mean, this is just nothing anymore. Okay, so the queen took b4, and not seeing the delicious and brilliant bishop to c5, I said bishop takes d7. Now it's funny that at a depth of 35, bishop to c5 was called for. But the move that I played actually had a higher evaluation. Bishop c5 was given 15.3, 15.4, whereas the move that I made was actually given 16.6 by Stockfish PNACL. So it actually likes this move better. My opponent, having no choice, and then again the ultra delicious bishop to c5 is called for. Didn't find it, and here I gave away most of my advantage, but I had so much advantage that when you're at 16.7 and you give away 10 points of advantage, well, actually I only gave away 7 points of advantage. This is rated at 9.3 by Stockfish. And taking with the rook on the H file is just moved it to a 10.5. But here I give opportunities where they really aren't necessary. Still, I figure I'm up a piece, and every piece that is lost only makes it harder to defend that king. So I make for a trade, and then I step up. Here my opponent plays rook on a to c8. which is just bad. Takes me back to an evaluation of plus 11. Stockfish said, if you're going to try to make anything happen, that's the only real move going. Let's look at the continuation is this. As you can see, there's just not much going on for black in this position. As they say, all but the screaming. It's over. So my opponent decided that from my position being here, that this pawn is unprotected. Ask it a question. But there's a lot going on in this position. Far more important things than that pawn, at least as far as White's position is concerned, because as you can see, White's king is well protected. Don't necessarily want to give away a foot soldier, but is that the most important thing that White's concerned about? No. White sees this line. And a hit on that king. So the taking of this pawn is meaningless. Plus the queen's got problems yet again. Here, an idea not unlike Stockfish's is called out. Looking for another simple trade. Prepared to give away a pawn. Creating more of a battery on this line. Vain hopes of a back rank mate, even though this is controlled C square. And here, I pretty much shut things down. Sadly, the best answer is rook to c7, which is no good because of pinned. And from here, there's that bishop c5 maneuver again. But it's hopeless. Rook takes, queen takes. Done. It's over. So, the rook take b7 check is pretty much fatal. My opponent found the wrong move, panicking. Still had a minute and 2 seconds on the clock for me, but my opponent was pretty much down at this point, and he chose that maneuver, which led to this, and of course, that's mate in 1. And so my opponent resigned on move 20. This was an exciting and attacking game of chess. I found it to be eye-opening. How many Sicilians have I played? I've never been led into this position before. And yet, when I look deeper and deeper for ideas that allow for accelerated play, these are the kind of things you will find. Seen before? Absolutely. But by move 6, we were on our own. Mind you, my opponent with the black pieces was not making grandmasterly moves by move 6. But had played some pretty strong games up to that point. Not great chess, just decent chess. But we ended up with this. And so I won the 6-game match. And please like, comment, share it with your friends and your family. Don't forget to study. Yes, chess, love.